Hello everyone, hello, and welcome to PTL Season 10 Power Rankings for the Geomancy Draft Division thingamabody. I'm DI Gremlin. I'm in the other division, and I'm kind of like doing my own thing. So if you're looking for the Oblivion Wing Draft Power Rankings, Zane will do those shortly, but Zane's a big dum-dum, so don't expect anything good. A little bit of preamble, a few disclaimers before we get into this. Power rankings are kind of dumb. Like, we like them, there's a lot of discussion, we like to think what people think about our teams, but at the end of the day, power rankings are never a true indication of how good your team is or how well it's going to do. Teams always perform differently on paper than they do in practice. I mean, you can literally get last place in power rankings and still win the league. So even if I've said your team is not so good, I'm trying to look at it overall as a whole. I'm trying to take everything into consideration. And if your team is low, it means I personally am not a huge fan of it. I think it might be a bit matchup based and have a few holes in it. But that does not mean that you're going to do badly with it. So I think without further ado, let's jump right in. So at number 16, we have the Phoenix Solrocks, coached by, I'm going to butcher this name, Raib Ragus. I'm very sorry for that. But yes, we have the Phoenix Solrocks, and at first glance, you might think that's kind of crazy. This team starts off really fire. Dragapult is obviously one of the most insane mons in draft. Enamorous Incarnate, I obviously rate very highly. It was my round 1 pick. And Melmetal is a pretty insane mon, and a very good pairing with those two. That's a really insane Fairy Dragon Steel Core to start off with. So we're seeing some pretty great offense there. Dragapult's a ton of options once you're set up. Melmetal can break, Enamorous has insane coverage. And then as we scroll down, we see some pretty decent defenses. You've got Mandibuzz, you've got Reuniclus, those are pretty fat. Do you have Mega Camel, which is a mon that exists? So why have I ranked this team so badly? Why is this team at the very, very bottom? One thing, this team's speed tiers are pretty whack. This is basically like, it has Dragapult for fast, and then it's kind of just a full Trick Room team. You have Reuniclus as a Trick Room setter. Bunch of random stuff down here that no one cares about. And then, Melmetal is good in Trick Room. That's kind of it. And then your only real fast mode is Pult and Enamorous. Everything else is pretty mid. There's a very, very big speed gap between Enamorous and Pult. I believe there's nothing between those. Yeah, these 1.1s kind of don't really count. So that's kind of bad. And I feel like having a team be a kind of Trick Room team doesn't really work in draft. I think Reuniclus works, but Reuniclus sets the Trick Room and takes advantage of it itself. It sets Trick Room, and then it has like Life Orb, Magic Guard, to basically be a Trick Room sweeper. Trick Room doesn't really last long enough for you to set up Trick Room, then get in another Trick Room sweeper, like Melmetal and Mega Camerupt, and have that work. Like, that might work like once in a season. It's not a great strategy to kind of build your team around. It's a cute idea in theory, having really fast things and really slow things, but you need some things in the middle. And this team doesn't really have that. And the other thing which this team ranked really, really poorly on is hazards. There's kind of no real other way to say this, but if we scroll all the way down, Mandibuzz is your defogger. Toucannon is like not a Pokemon. And then Mega Camerupt is your Stealth Rocker. I mean, Cleaver also gets Stealth Rocks, that is true. But I think Cleaver is pretty offensive. that's just really bad. Mega Camel is not a particularly good Pokemon. It might come like once or twice in the season. It's not really something you want to rely on. And again, Cleaver, not the best typing. You mainly kind of want to be clicking offensive buttons with it. And so looking at a team overall, a team that has really poor hazards is going to rank poorly. I can't really justify putting it any higher than this, even though it does have some really solid offense. So a lot of threats to prep for, but overall, just not a solid team, in my opinion. Up next, in 15th place, we have the Munchlaxter United, coached by Danny, of course, Kill You a Boom. Whatever, he's Danny. And honestly, this one kind of surprised me. Because it really doesn't look that bad. It's kind of a reminder that all of these teams are actually pretty solid. There's like no terrible teams here, so even if you're low on the list, your team has a lot of redeeming qualities. Like this team has some pretty great offense. Tapu Lele, super strong, super scary mon. Basically only struggles with steel types. And then you picked up the Keldeo, which can obviously brush those steel types aside. So I quite like that as a combo. And then Haxorus, just extremely strong, really, really scary Pokemon. Wall breaking potential, sweeping potential. Lycanroc Dusk is also a great mon. So I do quite like these first four big point mons and the offenses they provide. And then you got some like pretty good pivots with like Incineroar, Crobat, and then there's also some good Stealth Rockers down here. You got Aggron, brilliant Stealth Rocker, amazing Stealth Rocker. Mudsdale, if for whatever reason Aggron doesn't work. So I do prefer the hazards on this team. Having something more than rocks could be cool, but having two extremely good rockers and Lycanroc Dusk as that kind of offensive suicide rocker, that's pretty good. So this team much better on hazards. I like its offense. I think its defense is quite pressured. It's basically Mega Aggron and relying on Vaporeon to keep it healthy with Wish support. I think a lot of these defenses can get worn down pretty quickly, and this team is not really that difficult to break through. And the other thing that really hurt this team for me is I feel like the main core of this team, its speed tiers are quite bunched. Again, those main four offensive mons are Lele through to Lycanroc Dusk. There's only like 10 speed difference in between that. Like, yeah, you do have the fast Crobat, but I feel like that makes it relatively easy to prep around in terms of speed. And I just feel like there's some anti-synergy going on here. Like, you have Tapu Lele with the anti-priority terrain, and then you have a bunch of really good priority users like Lycanroc Dusk and Decidueye, which then can't take advantage of some of their really good moves. Like, take a Cell Rock away from Lycanroc Dusk. It gets a lot worse. That's a very strong move that's very difficult to deal with when it's priority based. And so I feel like this team is a pretty decent team with some pretty good offense and an okay defense, but I feel like it just doesn't come together. I feel like it's not that hard to prep for. And so it surprised me a little bit that it ranked this low, but after I considered everything, it did make sense. So, yep, that's the Munchlaxter United in 15th place. In 14th place, we have the Rose City Roselias, coached by CB Marcus. And you know what? This team looks really threatening. I feel like I've ranked it pretty low, but I'm not really sure I'd like to play this team. This team is basically a bunch of good offense slapped together. This has a number of mons that a lot of teams just won't really have good switch-ins for. Tornadus Therian, of course, very difficult Pokemon to deal with. Has a ton of good moves, ton of great options, setup options as well. Infernape, same deal. Can run a bunch of different sets: physical, special, setup, scarf, band, life orb, mixed, all sorts. Mamo, it's an insane wall breaker. Blastoise, also an insane wall breaker. Scroll down here, what have I missed? Oh, Zarude and Magnezone as well. Yeah, so this team has some pretty awesome offense. Definitely a team you would be okay with not having to face. But again, it's ranked fairly low. There's a couple of reasons for that. And one, I feel like the defense kind of just isn't there. There's a few bulky things. Gloking, Mega Blastoise is pretty fat. But as you scroll down the list, there's really no kind of raw, straight up defensive option. Like, Gloking is a very good pick for this team, I will say. Being able to switch in and take a hit and pivot out into your offense is super useful. But I feel like you needed more things like that. It doesn't have to be Regenerator Mons, although that would be obviously ideal, pairing that with Gloking and Torn. I just feel like this team gets worn down extremely quickly. Which is not the end of the world, given that this team is basically hyper offense, so its defense is not being the best is whatever. That's not like really hurting it. But I also don't like its hazards, and it's pretty much going to be a theme of this list is good offense but not so good hazards. Again, if we scroll down to the hazard section, we have a lot of options, but our 3 Stealth Rockers are Prinplup, which never comes, and then Mamo and Infernape, which are basically your 2 kind of main offensive things. Well, I mean, not like your only offensive things, but those Mons are too good offensively for you to have to rely on them to be your Stealth Rocker. I do like the Aselgor pick with the spikes and T-spikes. That definitely bumps it up in that regard. That's why this is like better than, say, the Phoenix Solrock. But even so, you need a good Stealth Rocker. I know people say nowadays that with heavy duty boots, rocks are like not a thing that are as good. Those people are wrong. Hazards are every bit as good as they have ever been. In my opinion, if you have good hazards, you force your opponent into running heavy duty boots on a lot of Mons, and that is really good for you, because then they're not running items like Life Orb and Choice Specs and all this crazy stuff that could actually be detrimental to you. But yeah, this team it's fine. It's pretty decent. I wish it had better hazards, but its offense is pretty good, and it has pretty decent speed tiers also. So definitely an okay team. Up next, in 13th place, we have the Indianapolis Cobalions, coached by Trexo. And you know what? This is a pretty solid team. We're starting to get to the point, even as low as 13th on the list, where these teams are honestly not bad. This team has some pretty good offense. You got the Mega Diancie, the Ageless, the Victini. I mean, we'll come back to those 3. But yeah, really solid offense, a lot of scary threats, and then also some like not terrible defense. I mean, it's not the best defensively, I will say. We kind of got we've got some decent lower tier picks in Chestnut and Hitmontop, Blastoise and Rotom-Mow. There's some common weaknesses on this team that really let it down. Like, Trexo patched his ground weakness a bit later, but the fact that his 3 best Mons that he wants to take to every single game are all ground weak, and on top of that they have other shared weaknesses. So 3 best Mons, Diancie, Aegislash and Victini. You got 2 water weaknesses, you got 2 ghost weaknesses, 2 dark weaknesses. They just, as a front 3, you really need those Mons to work well together. They're going to come to almost every single game. If they're not working well together, your team isn't going to work well together. Like, yeah, you've kind of, if you look at your team overall, you're like, well, overall my team isn't weak to ground because I got this good ground resist later and this one and this one and this one. Fair enough. But they're not all going to come to a game. So that seems like a pretty big issue. But the team does have some redeeming qualities despite its defensive frailties. This team has really good hazards. In fact, let's scroll down to the hazard control. Look at this. We got very good Spiker and Chestnut. We have a lot of Stealth Rockers. It's not the best. We got 2 decent lower tier Stealth Rockers, an offensive one, and then it's mainly going to fall down to Crocodile. But that's definitely better than some of the teams we've seen, and a great T-Spiker. Also, 2 Spinners, Defog, just great hazard control overall. That was definitely a big bonus for this team. But yeah, defensively, this team is a little bit lacking. I like it offensively, but it could definitely get punched through pretty quickly. Up next, we have the Deportivo Primarina, coached by, again, I'm very sorry about this pronunciation, Juancito Marvel? I'm sorry, it's fine, it's a thing. And this was probably one of the hardest teams to rank, just because the teams that are lower on the list are generally they got a pretty big hole with them, and they're kind of not that solid overall. This team overall looks really, really solid, both offensively and also kind of defensively. This team looks like a pain to deal with. You have some seriously powerful things like Mega Heracross and Darmanitan, as well as some kind of insane bulk like Zapdos and Feeny and Steeler. And a lot of these monsters can go offensive or defensive. You know, is Celesteela going to be bulky, or is it going to be sell-up? Is Feeny going to be a bulky defensive thing, or is it actually going to be a little bit quicker and more offensive? Same with Zapdos, same with Lati. And I really like that on a team. A team that has you prepping for mons that could be offensive or defensive. It's like you're prepping for twice as many mons. So yeah, I love the offenses here. I love the defenses. The synergy it's good enough. Like, my instinct when I saw this team was like, wow, this is quite electric weak. Like, if you draft Celesteela as your round 1, you're kind of expecting to really get a great electric check as soon as possible. So getting like Feeny and Zapdos and Mega Heracross, I was thinking to myself, but it's not the end of the world. But yeah, there are just a few types that are pretty decent against this team. So overall, I kind of really like this team. I wasn't sure about it, and then the more I thought about it, the better it got. However, it's our old friend Hazards. Claydol is the only Stealth Rocker. That's just not good. I just can't rank this team higher than it is, with Claydol being the only Stealth Rocker. Yep, you've got good Hazards elsewhere, Spikes and T-Spikes, but they're just not as good as Rocks. They're just not. Stealth Rock is the best move in the entire game, and having just one Stealth Rocker is not really good enough. The other thing about this team is its speed tiers are kinda whack. Like, they're really bunched together. The only real fast option here is Chinchino, which is kind of whatever. And then you've got this region between like Mega Heracross and Lati where virtually all of your Pokemon are. So speed tiers, not ideal. I think it's good enough to get by, so I didn't massively rank it down on that. It's mainly the hazards. This is why, in my opinion, a steel type that doesn't get Stealth Rocks is really difficult to build around, because you've got your Celesteela, so you don't really want another steel type. But then you're like the type of things you want to draft generally don't have rocks. So yeah, this team nearly very good. So 12th is, I think, a fair assessment on it. Up next, we have the Oslo City Dragon Archers, coached by Soul, and this, similar to the last team, I found this so difficult to rank, just because this team is weird. This team is very weird. So, in terms of offense, we have Latios plus Mega Mawile. that's kind of like all you need. Those are two insane offensive Pokemon, and they work really well together. Excadrill is, I mean, it's Drill. We all know what it does. Shaman Sky is difficult for us to say how good it is. I'm pretty sure it's trash. Without Seed Flare and Air Slash, you're left with like Giga Drain, Earth Power, Psychic. That's kind of it. Unless you run like a Swords Dance set, but Shaman's physical coverage is lacking. And I don't know, like, Shaman Sky, it's not bulky enough to run a defensive set, I don't think. But we'll see. We'll see how it performs. Speaking of bulk, this team has really solid defenses. I mean, he drafted Melodic, which our master literally quaking in his seat thinking about that. Melodic, Blissey, Kofag, and you can throw like Shaman Sky into that potentially, just because I feel like its coverage is not good enough for it to be offensive a lot of the time. But it still gets like Leech Seed and Recover and stuff. Oh yeah, I forgot about the Emboar down here. That's cool. Emboar is a really cool mod. But yeah, this team is not easy to break through. So while like bulk and kind of raw defense is definitely not as good as it used to be, with a lot more powerful things and wall breakers running around, it's still really useful to have those bulky mons. Like, prepping with this team is not going to be that hard for him. He's going to be like, okay, bulky Melodic is good, probably need a bulky Blissey, and let me think, oh yeah, let's bring like Lati and Mega Mawile for offense. And then this team just kind of scores okay across everything. Its hazards are, they're pretty decent. He's got a few rockers. They're not the most ideal, but he's got options. He's got some pretty decent removal options. His speed tiers are a little bit whack, but again, it's not the end of the world. He's just got this weird gap in the middle between Drill and something else. Like Floatzer is almost too quick from like his thing around the base 100 is Emolga. I'm sorry, nobody is going to prep for Emolga. This is a genuinely terrible Pokemon. So having that fill out an important speed tier gap is not the best. Yeah, I just don't know what to make of this team. It's weird. Like, there's an Excadrill with no Sand Setter. It just confuses me. So, thinking about it now and talking to other things, maybe I should have ranked it lower. But, like, it has good offense, it has good defense, it has decent hazards. It does have some pretty good setup, too. So, it feels difficult to rank it lower than I did, but I don't really like it. So that's me trying to be fair, because in terms of me personally liking this team, I probably would have ranked it lower, but it's very difficult to overlook some of the good parts of this team. Up next we have the Tip Town Timbers in 10th place, coached by Slick Panther. And this, we're starting to get towards the middle of the pack here. These are some solid teams. These are for sure some solid teams. I mean, you look at this, offensively, we got Mega Zam, that thing's crazy. Pair that with Weavile, that's also crazy. And we're starting to have some really scary looking speed tiers already, 2 Pokemon in. Nidoking, Insane Breaker, Cinderace, Greatmon. This team is like really fast and really threatening. Duran as well, that's a pretty good 7-point pick, I'm not gonna lie. Miss Mag is a good steal at 5 points. So yeah, this team's really fast and really offensive. And then defensively, you got like Rotom, Wash, and Skarm. That's kind of all he has. He's very reliant on that. But they do pair well together. Rotom Wash is only weak to Grass, I believe. Skarm quad resists it. And then Skarm has a few more weaknesses. It's got Fire weakness, which Rotom covers, and Electric, which is a little bit sus, given that its ground type is Nidoking, which is mainly an offensive mon. But even so, it's like, if you're not going to have a lot of defenses, at least have them have good synergy, and these mons do have pretty decent synergy together. So offensively, speed tiers, it seems like I'm really hyping up this team. In terms of hazards, having a Skarmory is just so good. Like, I believe Skarm is his main hazard setter, but Skarm is a very good hazard setter. Yeah, he's got a few rockers, spikes, T-spikes, like Nidoking. It's not really a hazard setter, but it's a nice option to have just in case Skarm has a really bad matchup. But 9 times out of 10, Skarmory is going to come and it's going to set those hazards. This team is just missing a few things. Like, looking through it, it doesn't have a dragon type, which is really weird. I mean, it just feels like a good solid dragon type could have rounded this out really nicely. Like, Rotomosh and Skarmory, they don't really cover the electric weakness, which makes electric pretty spammable here. If you have an electric type that can hit Nidoking, you can kind of run over this team. But a nice solid dragon type would really round out some of the holes of this team. And so this is definitely an overall solid team. I don't really have that much bad to say about it, but I don't really have anything to rave about it either. So a pretty middle of the pack spot, 10th place, I think is pretty fair. Definitely a solid team, but just feels like it's missing a couple of things. In 9th place, we have the Leuven Larvatars, coached by Blood. And I'm not going to lie, when I first saw this team, when Blood was drafting it, I just thought, well, that's going to be the number 1 team, isn't it? This team is insane. Actually insane. Probably has the best speed tiers of any team. Zamazenta plus Zera, really annoying to deal with. Mega Gardevoir, great mon, great speed tier. Scolipede is in the middle of Gardevoir and Zamazenta almost perfectly. Like, Blood just hit every speed tier that he needs to hit in very few picks because he spent a lot of points very quickly. His offenses are just so difficult to deal with. Zamazenta is just an annoying Pokemon. It's very, very difficult to switch into, and it's even harder to hit it back for damage. Zeraora, just a phenomenal Pokemon. Just straight up fast, hard hitting, ton of good coverage, can run physical or special. Mega Gardevoir hits like an absolute truck. I feel like Mega Gardevoir plus Zamazenta is a very, very threatening combo. And then defensively, this team is really solid. He's got such good bulky pivots. He's got the Moltres, the Swampert, and the Serena. Those mons go so well together. There's like no shared weaknesses between these mons. Like, Swampert is only weak to grass. He has Scolipede, which quad resists. Okay, it's not a defensive mon, but I just saw it. Moltres, which quad resists. Serena resists. Goodra is immune with Sap Sipper. Like, the defense of this team are not the thing you first jump to, but they're so well built. So these defenses and these pivots combined with these offenses, my first instinct was, this is the best team, number 1 for sure. So why is it only ranked 9th? The problem is that Swampert is the only Stealth Rocker. Like I said, he built around Swampert very well, but I just can't be biased and overlook that. Like, I've ranked a lot of teams harshly on poor Stealth Rockers. Having only 1 Stealth Rocker is not good. I just can't rank a team really highly that has bad hazards. And this is arguably the worst team in the league for hazards. The fact that it's very, very good in virtually all other areas, unfortunately, does not make up for it. He at least has the Scolipede for spikes and T-spikes. I feel like T-Spikes are super good with this team. But yeah, I just can't overlook it. Like, he has so many good ones. He has Goodra. He has an unbelievable Pokemon, one of the best, arguably the best Pokemon in all of Draft. Like, no, it's not an argument. He is the best Pokemon in all of Draft. But Blood, you needed some hazards. Just, if you only have one Stealth Rocker, it's so much easier to prep around. You know, it's like, okay, I know their only thing that can get up rocks against me, so let me, like, not run Boots on anything. Let me run a bunch of Choice Scarf things to outspeed Zera and Zama. Let me run Assault Vest to take hits from Guardy. It's just bad, which makes me sad. This team is so good otherwise. But I can't be biased, and I have ranked it 9th, even though this is a very scary team. Up next, we have the Los Angeles Nidokings, coached by Joey, and this team it's pretty solid. It's missing in a few key areas, but there's one thing which we'll come back to in a bit, which is just kind of insane about this team. I'm not a huge fan of its speed tiers. They're pretty bunched around the 100 mark, like Mew, Megazard, Thundy. Cabalion's not that much faster than that. Rillaboom's not that much slower than that. So definitely leaves a bit to be desired in terms of the speed tiers. This team is really good defensively, though. This is hard to break down. Mew, again, you don't always want to run Mew defensively, but I'm going to count it. Mew, P2, Cobalion, Florges cover each other really nicely. I really like the Jellicent pick. Alolan Persian is great for this team, for something we'll discuss in a bit. But just these mons here work insanely well together. Like, you have 2 fighting weaknesses for 2 fighting resists and an immunity. You do have multiple dark resists, dark weaknesses, but then Cobalion has Justified, and Florges is a great dark switching. P2 is knockoff weak, but again, Cobalion really dissuades you from going for knockoff because of Justified. So I feel like these defenses are really well built, and the offense in general it's pretty solid. It's definitely not as good as the defense is, but it's pretty difficult to look at Megazard, Rillaboom, and Thundy and think to yourself, oh yeah, this is fine. There's like no real offense here. And then hazard-wise, this team is pretty good. Not a whole lot to say there. The thing that this team really shines and has elevated it above some others is the setup options on this team are just insane. Mew gets every kind of setup. Zardex with Dragon Dance, Rillaboom, Swords Dance, Thundy with Nasty Plot, Cobalion with Swords Dance and Rock Polish, Florges with Calm Mind, Alolan Persian to get those parting shot stat drops into the sweepers. I just think this team is going to win like at least half its games in the season just on the basis of a Mon clicks a setup move and the game is over. And that is an extremely threatening team. You could out-prep and outplay Joey like all game long, and then he goes, oh, what if I click one button and win the game instantly? So like, the team, maybe not as solid overall as some other teams, but the fact that it has about 10 different instant win buttons makes it extremely scary. So I think that's a pretty fair justification for 8th place. That's pretty solid. It's a decent team. Up next, in 7th place, we have the Shanghai Dragons, coached by Ellie. And this team, I feel like I have like the least to say about it. This is just a really solid team. It doesn't have anything particularly bad about it, and doesn't have anything particularly amazing about it. This is just a good team. Great hazards, amazing hazards. In fact, no, let's show off how good this team is in terms of hazards. We've got a Spiker. We have some extremely good Stealth Rockers. Mesprit and Empoleon really take the pressure off of Lando in that regard. And then having a Weber and a T-Spiker to back up this team is just awesome. I wish you had a spinner to pair with the fact that your hazards are great, but you're also not that hazard weak. It would be nice to allow Curem to run some things like Specs and Life Orb, but what are you going to do? It's not that important. So yeah, great hazards. I think it's absolutely crazy that Ellie got both Empoleon and Mesprit. Like, that's just insane to me. Those Pokemon are really good in this format. Empoleon gets Roost and Mesprit gets Recover. And their typings pair extremely well. The fact that Mesprit has Levitate to cover Empoleon's ground weakness is insane. And Sylveon, to round those out, supply them both with Wish Pass and also resist like the Dark types that Mesprit doesn't like. I really like the defensive synergy there. And yeah, just overall, like, Lando's weaknesses are covered well as well. Lando and Empoleon, great synergy. Maybe I should have ranked this team higher for synergy. Whatever. I'm not redoing this list. So yeah, I really like the defense of this team. The hazards are great. Sticky webs on this team are scary. Curem under webs is not something I want to deal with, but I'm in the other division, so I don't have to deal with it. And just, like I said, like, there's not really anything particularly bad about this team. Offensively, it's got a Lando and a Curem. That's good. Mienshau's really good. I will say one thing, if I had to make a criticism of this team, Mienshao is basically going to be Joy Scarf every week. The speed tiers of this team are not perfect. Like, you do have sticky webs, but yeah, if the opposing team has a Choice Scarfer that can outspeed Mienshao, I feel like that could be a pretty big problem. Because like, Lando and Curem can run Choice Scarf sets. Like, Lando's a pretty good Scarfer, but Curem is better off doing other things, and Lando has so many options that you don't want to force it into running Scarf. And again, I prefer Mienshao as a wall breaker than a Scarfer, but it is very good at that role, and it might get forced into on this team. So yeah, like I said, I kind of don't have much to say about this team. It's just really solid. But I guess the other teams above it, just, I had reasons to put higher. So yeah, I'm just rambling at this point. I need to move on. Up next, in 6th place, we have the Nashville Predators, coached by Ethan. And this team, just above all else, just looks really awkward to prep for. I was just thinking to myself as I was going through this, Deoxys Speed is one of the most annoying Pokemon to prep for. You need like a base 115 or 120 Scarfer to outspeed it. It's really stupid, prepping for Deoxys Speed. And then on top of that, you got like Gliscor plus Scissor. That is just not fun to deal with. Especially with the Legends Arceus moves. I believe Scissor gets close combat now, which is just not fun to deal with. You got Raikou to fire off those big Volt Switches. Enamorous Therian, I think, it was maybe overpriced, but it's still really solid. It can run like an Iron Defense, Carmine Draining Kiss set, which is pretty scary. Mega Sharpedo, Chandelure, like, this team just has a ton of Pokemon that are really annoying to deal with. And then I feel like Ethan, as he always does, rounded this out with some phenomenal low-tier value picks. Type Null and Hariyama, for the points that they are worth, these are mons that you have to prep for. Like, if you don't prep for Type Null, that thing is so annoying, and Hariyama can dish out the damage. Tentacruel feels really important. It's a spinner, it's T-Spiker as well. So yeah, I just love the way that Ethan rounded out this draft. I feel like this team has great hazards. Its bulk is really annoying to break through. It's decent enough offensively. Like, compared to some of I believe all the teams higher than this probably have better offense, and that's why this is only in 6th place. But yeah, I just get the feeling that this is a very awkward team to prep for. Put it in the hands of Ethan, Ugh. Ugh. I just feel like, I mean, I didn't consider coach at all in the rankings of these teams, but this team in the hands of Ethan is going to be a bitch. Yeah, I feel like to elevate this team higher, he could have maybe built around Deoxys speed a little bit better. Again, if you're forcing guys to run choice scarfers to outspeed the Dio speed, you kind of want something... Like, you kind of want to force them to run a Scarfer that isn't fast enough to outspeed Deoxys speed. So, something like a Darmanitan. Darmanitan, when you prep for it, you have to prep the Choice Scarf. So you're like, okay, I'll run my base 100 Choice Scarf, easy. You kind of don't want to do that against a team with Deoxys speed. Because then you have a Choice Scarfer that isn't even faster than their Pokemon. So you're kind of forcing them into a bit of a redundant bring. Or you're forcing them into not bringing a Choice Scarf and opening up your kind of really hard-hitting fast stuff to be super threatening. So I feel like he could have built around that better. That's pretty much the only criticism I have, and it's not really a massive criticism. This is a good team. Very, very annoying to prep for, very annoying to deal with. Yep, Ethan, I'm sure, will make very good use of this. Up next, breaking into the top 5, we have a team that I have no idea how to say this team name. Like, is that FT? I swear FT is usually featuring. Is this featuring the Lauderdale Feather Dancers, or is it FT Lauderdale Feather Dancers? I feel very stupid. I've been looking at this team name for like 5 minutes. Whatever. It's coached by Honch, and this team is spookily similar to my PTL Season 3 team. That team had Necrozma, it had Greninja, it had Mega Beedrill, it had Hazard Stack. Didn't it have one of these other Pokemon? Oh, Shaman! I love Shaman! Oops. Yep, this team is basically my Season 3 team, only with a Landorus Incarnate, which is a really, really scary Pokemon, and also a very good pairing with Necrozma. And I had a Kommo-o, and he's got a Terrakion instead, which is basically stronger Kommo-o. So yeah, I found this team pretty difficult to rank, because I absolutely loved that Season 3 team. Necrozma, amazing. Greninja, amazing. Mega Beedrill. Mega Beedrill tries. It really does try. I think the good thing about this team is it's not really reliant on Beedrill at all. When I had Beedrill, I kind of had to bring Beedrill to every game, and people just ran Stealth Rocks against me all the time, and it was very, very sad. This team doesn't really need Beedrill, and it's also not really that hazard weak, which I think is a pretty good thing to pair with Beedrill. It's hard not to be biased, but Necrozma is just one of the best mons in draft. It's insane. It's so ridiculously bulky, but also so offensive and can do so many setup things. It really only tends to struggle with like really fat dark types or really fat steel types. And then you have a Terrakion and a Lando right there just to completely annihilate those things. So I really love those three as an offensive pairing. Honestly, this team probably would have ranked number 1 if Necrozma wasn't just forced to be defensive most weeks. This team, defensively, is just a little bit lacking. You got Shaman to be bulky. I do love Sticky Webs on this team, by the way. That is fantastic. If you get Sticky Webs up, I don't think anything in the game is outspeeding Mega Beedrill. I guess like Scarf Deoxys speed, but that would just be weird. But yeah, when you look at this team defensively, and in terms of its Stealth Rockers as well, the burden falls to Necrozma, which takes away from the fact that this team was so good offensively, including Necrozma in that. Necrozma is so annoying to prep for, so difficult to prep for, and if you look at this team and go, oh, well, rocks are really good against me, so they have to bring rocks on Necrozma. Because whilst there is an insane amount of hazards on this team, the only rockers are Lando, Necrozma, and Terrakion. Like, if we scroll down to the hazards, it's pretty insane. 2 really good spikers, 3 stealth rockers, sticky webs, and 2 really good T-spikers. Very, very scary. Oh, also one thing that I wish this team had was take this hazard stack and give it a spinner. The only way of removing hazards is defog. Yeah, you have a lot of defoggers, but hazard stack plus rapid spin is scary. If you can get up a ton of hazards and your opponent can't, you are in such a good position. Because you want to get rid of hazards to keep that Beedrill alive, to make it a threat, but you don't want to get rid of all the hazards you've just spent time setting up. So yeah, this team, very, very close, I feel, to being higher than it is and to being a really incredible team. But I think offensively this team can really overwhelm you, and defensively I think it's just well built enough together to be threatening. I don't know. The more I talk about these teams, the more I'm like, damn, I probably should have ranked Ellie higher. Ellie's team was really good. Whatever. But yes, that was Honch. Let's move on. Up next in 4th place, we have the Carolina Conkelders, coached by Marcus or Marky. And this team is really scary. This team just looks annoying. The offensive synergy on this team is cracked. Actually, just straight up cracked. Mega Medicham is a monster. An absolute monster. It tears things apart for fun. The only thing Mega Medicham tends to struggle with is bulky psychics. And then he picked up Spectrier and Tyranitar. Spectrier basically only struggles with like a bulky dark types and bulky normals. And he's paired that with Mega Medicham. Prepping for these things in tandem, not fun. Not fun at all. Very not fun. And then defensively, he's got Clefable, and he's got Corviknight, and he's got the Rotom Heat and T-Tar as well. Throw that in the mix. These things are not fun. These things are not fun to deal with. When you have a team that is this powerful and can rip you apart so easily, prepping for those really fat walls is tough, because you want to bring wall breakers. You want to rock up to this match and be like, oh, I'm going to bring like Choice Specs, Electric type or whatever. And he's like, okay, that's cool. I mean, I'll just one-shot you with Medicham, like Drain Punch all my health back, but that's cool. Yep. So yeah, this team has like arguably some of the best offenses in the entire league and arguably some of the best defenses in the entire league. This team is spooky, very spooky, and a lot of the things that I've been sort of harsh on other teams, like their hazards and their speed tiers, this team is just good enough to get by. It has just enough in terms of the hazards where I'm like, yep, that's not detrimental, and its speed tiers they're just okay enough. You got things like the Spectrier being that really fast mon, that big threat. Superior is a pretty important speed tier too. Oh, excuse me. So yeah, I feel like the offensive synergy and the defensive synergy on this team is pretty great. I feel like it could have been rounded out better though. Like the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 picks are absolutely insane, and these 6 are going to come the majority of the time. But these bottom picks, they just could have been better. Like, why did you pick Superior and Amoonguss? Those 2 grass types that, I mean, okay, they do different things, but generally speaking, like, when are you ever bringing both of those ones to a battle? I would argue never. And then Sandslash is, yeah, it's a Pokemon, and Kamala is a Pokemon, and Wishy-Washy is a Pokemon. I feel like drop one of Superior and Amoonguss, and maybe drop like Wishy-Washy, Kamala, whatever. Combine them together, get like 2 decent point Pokemon to really round out this team and make it an absolute top tier threat. Because the offenses that this team has and the annoying defenses, this is a good team. This is a really good team. It just wasn't rounded out perfectly. And that makes me sad because it's otherwise just really good. Just really good. Has great removal as well, which I haven't talked about a lot for a lot of these teams because removal is, it's good to have, but not crucial. But this team's removal is very good. Yep, that's pretty much all I gotta say here. Drop one of Superior and Amoonguss, perfect this team, you'll probably get bumped up to number 1. Coming in at number 3, we have the Houston Team Rockets, coached by Randy, and it's a rain team. It's a rain team, and if you'd have asked me, oh, excuse me, if you'd have asked me before I did these rankings, if you said, oh hey, there's a rain team, where do you think you rank it? I'd have said 16th. In my opinion, rain is really not very good. Rain is just, it's just not that good, and it's ironic because Rain literally won the whole league last season. But I feel like everyone has seen Rain at this point. Everyone knows how to deal with it, and all Rain teams are the same. This is probably the best Rain team I have ever seen. Because this is, the team really doesn't need Rain at all. The only Pokemon on this entire team that absolutely requires Rain to be a good Pokemon is Kingdra. I mean, Politoed, I guess, but that literally is the Rain setter. Everything else here does not need Rain to be good, which means Randy could rock up most weeks and not bring any Rain, and not bring a Rain team, and just have a good team. Or he could bring Rain to support his Pokemon, because everything on this team likes the Rain. Mega Scizor loves Rain. Togekiss, Rain's pretty good for it. Kingdra obviously loves the Rain. Toad loves Rain. Torn for those 100% accurate Hurricanes, that's disgusting. The Salazzle, kind of not so much, but again, that's where this team has a very strong non-raid mode. Salazzle's probably the only Pokemon that you really don't bring with the Rain. Jolteon for those Thunders. This team is just, ugh, god, it just looks so annoying to prep for. Because you're not dealing with all the kind of normal Rain stuff. You're not dealing with Mega Swampert and all this other stuff that all Rain teams just have because they're Rain teams. This is more than a Rain team. This is a very, very good team that happens to have a Rain setter and is also built very well around that. Like, on its own, Garchomp plus Mega Scizor plus Togekiss, that's crazy. That's really, really good. That's so difficult to deal with. And some of the other stuff that I was mentioning earlier is just, they're just good mons. There are just a bunch of good mons with good synergy, built very well. Like, the offense on this team is completely cracked, and it is not easy to break through. What do I not like about this team? Probably its hazards, right? Is it hazards bad? It's not terrible. It could be better. Like, Garchomp is a good Stealth Rocker, but again, you don't really want to run Stealth Rocks on it. To be honest, I think Omastar, I know exactly why he drafted Omastar. I did this last season. It gives him a bunch of good hazard options, but it feels like a non-pick on this team. Like, it's just, you're picking it because it's got hazard, and you're like, oh, it's got Rain synergy. Let me tell you, I had Omastar on a Rain team in Season 1 of PTL, a team I adopted. Omastar is not a Rain Sweeper. Omastar is not a Rain Sweeper. Do not bring it as one. it is a hazard stacker and a potential shell smasher, and nothing else. So the rocking on this team pretty much falls down to Seismitoad, but at least he does have other options, so it's not the worst. And I guess like the speed tiers on this team are a little bit not the best. Like, it's helped because of Rain Mode to give him those super fast things with his Swift Swimmers, but outside of Rain, his speed tiers they're just okay. And he also kind of doesn't really have a good slow thing. So I feel like stuff like base 70s against this team kind of just run like max bulk and max offense and don't have to run any speed investment. That's pretty nitpicky. This team is third for a reason. It's very good. Coming in at second place, we have the Vancouver Titans, coached by Gray, the commissioner. And if you're wondering, yes, he paid me off. No, this team is just... the offenses are just off the charts. It's one of those things where I can just read out the Pokemon, and you can understand why it's ranked this high. Mega Gallade, plus Tapu Koko, plus Hydreigon, plus Galarian Darmanitan, plus Ursaluna, which is a new toy, but my god, that thing is a monster. Like, it's unproven. We haven't really seen it. But Guts Facade from this thing hits like an absolute truck, and it is so bulky. This thing is very difficult to break through. Just the offenses on this team are disgusting, and the speed tiers that Gray drafted as well to pair with that offense supports it so nicely. And then his lower picks just don't let up. Like, he drafted Alolan Raichu onto Terrain. This thing is very threatening. Very threatening. Sceptile to get Unburden Moods. Hisuian Typhlosion for 4 points is kind of a steal. And then he just grabbed some random Shell Smashers just to be like, I don't have enough offense. I want 2 extra sweepers that also improve my hazard situation. Because hazards was a concern of this team. It's probably the only weak point of this team. It's the reason that the team is not first, is its hazards could definitely be improved. I just wouldn't want to play this. Like, you can't switch into any of these Pokemon, and a bunch of them can set up in your face as well. Hydreigon, Gallade, Koko, Gyarados. If these Pokemon set up, the game is over. He has so many win buttons. How do you prep against this many win buttons? I don't like it. Don't like it. Defensively, this team kind of sucks. Like, straight up. This team is pretty damn frail, and synergistically, its defenses are very odd. Because he has this electric terrain Tapu Koko, and then he only has like 1 electric switch in. If you have an electric type that can touch Ursaluna, this team is kind of there for the taking. So yeah, it's a little bit of a weird team, to be honest. It's basically absolute hyper offense, but I think it has enough bulk to get by, despite not being good defensively. And I just think this team can just completely overwhelm you. It's just insane. It's one of those teams where the fact that it's a bit frail defensively and it has some weaknesses kind of doesn't really matter. Like, the fact that it's got a Gyarados that's just going to die to any electric move is kind of a moot point when you're getting swept by Mega Gallade, or just getting ripped apart by Ursaluna. So, yep, this is my second place pick. I don't really have much to say about it, just the offense combined with these speed tiers, not friendly. Also, he has quite a good way to pivot around, like Koko, Hydreigon, Darm. They can all pivot around and get in some other kind of insane offense. It's not fun. I'm glad I'm not in this division and I don't have to play this team. Which means, if you're keeping track, the number 1 pick is the Baltimore Glycoriolus. I've never liked this team name. Like, what is this word? Zane, this is... you're bad. You're dumb. So yeah, Zane is first. My partner in crime. Did he bribe me? Kind of. He kind of did bribe me. He bribed me by drafting what can only be described as a gremlin team. He said to me whilst he was drafting, he was like, haha, look, it's me, I'm doing a grem draft. And with every pick, I was going, oh, that's so good. Oh, that's so good. Oh, I want this team. Yep, Zane just drafted to appease me, which is smart, you know? If you draft to the way that the power ranker likes, you're going to get first. Megalopoly plus Gengar is ridiculous. Amazing combo. Insane combo. Just, these top 5 picks are just, they're so perfect. They're so perfect. I have drafted Megalopoly Gengar before. They're insane together. I've currently drafted Dragonite plus Jirachi together. All of those Pokemon together, like Megalop plus D-Knight, is insane. Jirachi plus Gengar is crazy. I love the Volcanion pick to kind of help out against those bulky steel types, which otherwise Megalop is a bit pressured to deal with. The potential ground types as well, Volcanion can smack. And then defensively, this team is just, it's really bulky and really offensive. I love the Tangrowth pick. Tangrowth to just switch in, chew a hit, and then switch out into some crazy offensive monster. Love it. Throw Sticky Webs on this team with Rabombi. That's a Grem move. Just throw a Sticky Web on here. And you know what? Rabombi is a threat. This thing hits hard with Specs Moonblast. This is a real sleeper threat on this team. Given that he has so many things like Megalop and Volcanion that are kind of going to tear through people's steel types, do not be surprised for Rabombi to pick up a few sweeps. And then he's got like Quagsire. His team is so good against grass, and he just picked up late round Quagsire. Absolutely love it. What do I not like about this team? Like its hazards could be better, but they're not bad. Like, his main Stealth Rocker is Jirachi, but Jirachi is a very good Stealth Rocker. And then he does have webs, so his hazards could definitely be a lot better. Again, he's got Bishop for the kind of suicide Stealth Rocker. This team's just really good. I just love this team. I would draft this exact team, and I would have no regrets. And so, even though it pains me to put Zane first, he drafted a team that he knew I would like, and I do like it, and so I put it first. And if you disagree with me, that's okay. Leave a comment below saying why I'm a big dum-dum. And, yeah, I don't know. The thing is that I've looked over all of these teams for a little bit of time. I don't know how much time I spent on each team, but it is definitely less time than you spent building it. So if I've missed something, and if I've missed a hidden piece of synergy, that is because you know your team better than I do, and that's how it's supposed to be. But yeah, honestly, overall, these teams are pretty damn good. I think it was like the bottom 2 or 3 teams I didn't really like, and most of the teams were just pretty solid, with a few little holes, and then the top few teams were basically just the best offensively that I felt were rounded out in nice ways. And so, yep, that's it. That's all I gotta say. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.